Well, we're back again with another rendition of what happened down here under the Gold Dome. And I have a new guest with us this week, and her name is Myrna Clayton, and she goes by the International Songbird. Is that correct?
That is correct.
All right. And I met her, well, actually, I heard her sing at Impact Church this past Sunday. And I was just fascinated with her voice. I was fascinated with all of the work that was being done that day. And then I just had the blessing of coming back and seeing you here at the Capitol.
Yes.
And unfortunately, they picked a day when there wasn't a lot of people here to hear you.
Unfortunately.
But the Saints heard you, so
absolutely.
That's okay. And but anyway, I understand. You know what drew my attention, in addition to your wonderful voice, was the fact that you are also involved in helping people who have disabilities.
Right, singers with disabilities.
Tell us about that a little bit.
Okay, well, I have a nonprofit, and it's called Able to, ABEL, and number 2. And we really promote the abilities of people with disabilities, whether that be art, music, performing. And I was at the state capitol today with an organization called Full Radius Dance Company, and they are an inclusive organization that features dancers with disability in wheelchairs, as well as dancers who are able-bodied. Mm-hmm. And so we had collaborated. They had asked me to sing a cappella with them, and so we were there representing and showcasing the abilities of people with disability. And so it was really great to have that experience. I was thrilled to be there. Unfortunately, there were not a lot of people there because apparently you guys are
we're out of session.
Session today. So I'm hoping that there's a way that we can come back at a time when you guys are in session to showcase this. The purpose for it today was really remembering Georgia's mother, if you will, of women's voting rights. Okay. And that was a purpose for us being there.
And who gets that designation?
Miss McClendon. I think it's Margaret McClendon.
Margaret
McClendon is definitely the last name.
And she's the one they have a statue over there.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes, and so many people have passed by and didn't know who that was, but that's who she is. She's considered the mother of women's voting rights, and so this particular performance was in honor of her. Okay.
Well, we're going to talk about that a little bit more, but normally we allow the others to introduce themselves, and I skipped that. So introduce yourselves.
I'm Tiffany Stewart Stanley.
I'm Sharice Harris.
Okay. What do y'all think about what she was just talking about? Any comments?
I think that's awesome, number one. I'm a lover of performing arts anyway, and so the ability to allow those who are disabled to be included and also have a platform, where they're able to enjoy and, express themselves creatively as well and be acknowledged for that. Absolutely. I think that's absolutely wonderful.
All right.
Well, yes, I think it's a great thing to be able to, if you're disabled and actually be able to dance and do different things. I think that's wonderful, and just have an opportunity to let people see your talent. So I think that's great.
Okay.
Now, I'm sorry, I have one last question. There's a performance or something coming up that they're also doing?
They're having their annual performance. It's going to be at 7 stages in March. Okay. I think it's, but you can go to fullradiusdance.org. Or just kind of Google Full Radius to find out more about that. Jazz Appreciation Month is April of every year, and I will be performing with the big band Westside Winds Jazz Ensemble April 27th at Porter Sanford Performing Arts Center, and then we're doing a tribute later in the year to Ella Fitzgerald in September for at the Southwest Performing Arts Center. And so I'm going to be with the big band doing that, looking so forward to that.
I have to come to that because that's actually in my district, so I'm going to come over there and look at that.
Awesome.
You mentioned that you guys were here honoring the young lady that dealt with voting.
Correct. Women's
So how do you feel about that? Do you feel that women have had their opportunity, so to speak, in Georgia?
Well, I think there's opportunity for more.
Okay.
I certainly think that from a citizen standpoint, not necessarily legislation, but from an active participant, we could definitely have more platform, more opportunity to speak our rights and speak our voice. And a lot of times people will take things for granted, but there's certainly an opportunity for more, especially since there is 50-50 in terms of voting number, but not necessarily 50-50 in terms of representation.
And the reason that I ask that is because, we're engaged right now in a effort to try to give the people of South Fulton County an opportunity to vote as to whether they want to be a city or not. And, so while we're trying to encourage people to register to vote, to exercise their right to vote, I found out not too long ago that there's a group of people that are advocating for the area to be annexed into cities, particularly into Atlanta, some of that area to be annexed into Atlanta. I just got information that they have a campaign to take people off of the voter registration. And when I tried to find out why, apparently one of the process is that you have to get a certain number of signatures. You have to get 60% of the people who live in the area to sign a petition to say that they want to be annexed into the neighboring city. And they have not been able to get the 60%. So what they're trying to do is reduce the number by having people taken off of the voter registration rolls. And what they're targeting are students that they know when they were in high school, they were, even in college, but they were staying at home, but now they've graduated. And so they have been going and trying to get all of those people, all those children taken off of the voter registration rolls so that the number goes down. What do you think about that? In light of what you're saying about women's right and people's right to vote, what do you think about that?
Well, that to me, that's very deceptive. Unless you're contacting me and giving me that option, I sign to vote. And for whatever reason, if I'm there, then I'm still a voting member.
Right.
And so unless you reach out to me and find out, in fact, where I am, then you have no right to remove me.
And that would be my thought. What do you guys?
I agree 100%. I feel the same way. It's rather deceptive, the way that it was just explained. And, of course, if you have no idea that that's going on, it's like a total violation of your right, just altogether across the board.
Well, the way people were finding out, and I found out in my own house, okay? I have two children that they're trying to get settled, in life. They recently graduated from college, but they're still trying to figure out, where am I going to end up? Where am I going to live? What am I going to do? Fortunately, both of them are engaged in meaningful things. They're working, but they're not stable yet. And so as far as they're concerned, they still live at home. They just are somewhere else temporarily until they figure out all the things they want to do. But we got something in the mail basically saying that, that there was a complaint filed by an individual whose name I won't mention. And they're saying that you don't live at the address where you say you live, and they want you taken off of the voter registration rolls. And but that has happened to all of the kids that live in the community. And with the struggle that we're having to get people to register to vote, we don't take anybody off of the register. Especially if you haven't confirmed whether or not they are in fact at home or not. If somebody had called and said, this is what we're thinking about doing, you could have the conversation. And but that never happened. They just filed a complaint against these kids. And in fact, some of the kids are still physically in the house every single day. So it just doesn't make sense to do that. But the current status, as I understand it, for the bill, is that it's in the Senate, and it passed out of the House last year. Actually passed out twice. The last 2 years. It's in the Senate, and because it did not complete the cycle in the last session, it was recommitted back to the committee from which it came. And now Senator James is working to try to get it out of that committee and back to the Rules Committee so it could get back on the floor of the Senate. And once that happens, then the bill would come back to the House because they had to make some changes to it based on timing and because it didn't pass out when it did, the dates have to be changed. Some other things have to be changed. So the bill has to come back to the House, and once it comes back to the House, then we got to agree to it, and then it goes to the governor for signature. And but that's the current status. And if the people that are watching this, if you have any questions about that, feel free to call my office or call Senator James's office, and either one of us would be more than happy to try to help you out with the information. But that's the current status of that bill. There's also legislation pending. What I'm hearing is that the governor would like to expand the size of the Georgia Supreme Court and add 2 more members to the Supreme Court. I've got mixed emotions about it. You know, if it was intended to do this so that it would free up time for the existing members, then I would understand it. But in my conversation with current members of the court, they're not busy enough to justify the addition. So I would ask the question, why do we need more if the ones that are there are not maxed out? And then the only thing that comes to mind is that there's some politics, you know, and I think they attempted to do this years and years ago at the federal level. They wanted to add more, stack some more people to the court to change the opinion of the court as opposed to actually dealing with the volume of work. It was so that the opinions that they would come out with would be more consistent with, you know, in this case, the majority party. So that's one of the concerns that I have, and I need to find out more about it, you know, so that I'm talking intelligently about it. But the fact that members of the court have already said we don't need any more people on the court, the only thing I can think of is that they're trying to change the philosophy of the court.
Right.
You guys have any thoughts on that?
Well, as a general constituent, my question would be, how does that affect citizens?
Yeah. Well,
How would that affect them?
Well, again, I thought it would affect them because the philosophy of the court could shift, could change based on who is appointed to it. They're supposed to be impartial. They're supposed to, you know, just go by the facts. But we all know that people, they will judge based on their own experiences and things like that. So that's one that we need to just pay attention to. We need to keep our eyes open and see what's really going on with that, because it's questionable as to why you would want to add more if the work volume does not require you to do so.
And I think if you can show some data, I mean, there should be data to show the flow through the court. I haven't had the privilege of practicing in the Supreme Court or the Court of Appeals, but I know a lot of the municipalities and a lot of the state and superior courts, some of those are overburdened in some of the growing counties like Douglas County where I do practice. You know, the courts are having problems keeping up with the population. So if you have a situation like that where the caseload is overbearing, then maybe that's something to consider. But if the data is not there and the justices are saying they don't need the additional justices, then I wouldn't see a need for it.
Right.
If the data does not show that there
And that's
needs
why I
to be
said we
more.
need to pay attention to this one so we can find out what's really at the root of it, because if like you said, if the load is not there, then why are we doing it? And so there were some other things that came up during the week. What do you guys have that you want to talk about?
Well, one thing that I saw was interesting, which kind of goes to what we were just discussing, is municipal courts, HB 691, which states that appointed municipal court judges could be removed if they do something unethical, and it gives the governing power of the municipality the right to remove them if they get a total of 2/3 of that governing authority to vote to remove that municipal judge, because most municipal judges are appointed, and so that would give, you know, the city council or whoever appoints them the authority to go in and say, this person has done something unethical, and therefore we need to remove them.
And when you say municipal, obviously you're talking about cities. But is that the same thing? Is that, you know, because sometimes different courts, they have different names, but it's the same thing. And so you have magistrate.
Magistrate is a system of the county. That would be like where you go if you need to get a warrant, landlord tenant, things like that. Magistrate judges also do warrants.
Okay.
Municipal court judges are judges that are typically for like the city of Douglasville, the city of Powder Springs.
Okay.
So they handle mostly like city ordinances, traffic violations is pretty
Okay.
much what they handle. You don't have any trials in the municipal courts. Those cases, if you want a trial, they're transferred to the state
To the state court.
So most of the time, the municipal court judge is just hearing traffic violations. If a person gets a DUI, they can plea it there, but if they want to do something else, they have to go to the state court.
Yeah, I just remember an incident in the Fulton County court, the Fulton County Magistrate Court. There was a young lady, you were talking about women with disabilities. The chief judge in that court was in a wheelchair. She was in a car accident when she was a student in college. And she was pretty much paralyzed from the neck down. And she started getting some of her feelings back, but she was never able to get out of the wheelchair, and she has it on automatic, so to speak. She can just move her hand and it moves the thing around. And she, in spite of all of that, she finished law school, and she continued and became the chief magistrate judge. You know what I'm talking about? And then, when they decided that they wanted the magistrate judges to run for election as opposed to be appointed by the state court judges. Because I think that's how it was. The state court judges actually appointed the chief judge, and then they had the other judges. So it was decided they wanted to elect the judge. And instead of saying when her term was up that she would have to run for the seat as opposed to just automatically be appointed, they removed her from that position, replaced her with someone else, and she's still a judge from what I understand. She's still over there, but now if she wants to run, she can't run as the incumbent because they've appointed somebody and allowed that person to serve for 4 years, and now that person would be able to say that they're the incumbent and have a better chance of winning because they're the incumbent. That to me sounds like it's inconsistent with what you're talking about and what others are talking about in terms of being able to exercise your right. You got any thoughts on that? And did I get that right?
Well, and I'm not familiar with the situation in Fulton County, but I know in Douglas County, the chief magistrate judge is elected. It is a partisan race, so you can declare yourself a Democrat or a Republican, and then the chief magistrate would appoint her, in our case it's a female, her magistrate judges. So she has one full-time magistrate judge, and I believe it's 2 part-time magistrate judges right now in Douglas County. So that's typically how it is around the state, that the chief magistrate judge is elected.
And that's okay. And in this instance, I don't think anybody would have argued, that being an elected position, but she should have been allowed to serve out her term and then just run for the seat as the incumbent because she was. So, but to remove her and delay the election process for 4 years, they're saying they wanted to be elected, but not for 4 years. And in that 4-year period, somebody else is serving. So I just don't think that was fair to her. Especially, she's, like I said, the things that she's had to overcome in terms of her disability, it just doesn't appear that people were being sensitive about her situation. And I mean, again, I don't think it was a function of her not doing a good job. Nobody said that she was not doing a good job. She's still over there. She's still a judge. So
It sounds like a different agenda.
yeah.
And so I'm obviously not politically astute, so I'm just going to say that sounds like a different agenda,
Yeah.
and someone else was wanting some other things to go on, because it sounds very strategic for them to remove her and then delay an election and then require her not to be able to run as an incumbent. So that sounds like some other stuff is
And that's why I say we have, even though the woman that you mentioned that you guys were celebrating today, that was how many years ago?
Well, that was turn of the century in terms of her her wanting women's rights to vote.
Exactly.
You know, and
we're
fighting
still
for
dealing
that.
with those issues now.
Yes.
Something's wrong with that picture.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Definitely.
What did you have this week?
I had, what bill was that? Bill about the, I lost it, about the House Bill 801, okay, which is about hope, including certain coursework in computer science. So this bill provides for the addition of computer science class in the category of advanced science to satisfy the eligibility requirements to receive the Hope Scholarship. What do you think about that?
Yeah, basically, you know, and again, I'm still trying to get my arms totally around around that, but it sounds to some degree, because this is taking money and putting it. It seems like we're giving money to people who don't need the money.
Right.
That's what it sounds like. And you know, and we have a lot of students that are in need of financial assistance so that they can you know, complete their education.
Right.
So again, that's another one of those bills that we have to really look at it in depth. But on the surface, it sounds like a good idea, but when you get into the root of it,
distributed some other
yeah,
way.
the money is going to people who don't necessarily have a need for it, but we need to find out if that's really what's going on. Did you have any other? Okay.
No, I think that was really the one that I had, was the one about the municipal court judges.
Okay. And did you have another one you wanted to talk about?
No, that was the main one that stood out to me.
All right. Well, given that, you know, we've covered a lot in a short period of time here. And we want to thank you for participating with us today. Hopefully you had a good time.
I did. I learned a lot too.
Okay, and that's what it's all about. We want to do these things each week to try to inform the public about things that are going on down at the Capitol, but also about things that are of interest to them in the community. You want to say one more time, you're going to be performing, where your next performance is going to be?
April 17th at Porter Sanford Performing Arts Center, April 17th for Jazz Appreciation Month with Westside Winds Jazz Orchestra, and then also September 18th at the Southwest Performing Arts Center. I'll be there with the Westside Wind Big Band again.
And does everybody know where the Porter Sanford?
I don't know. Well, we'll see. It's on Rainbow Drive off of Candler Road,
Okay.
in Decatur, and so hopefully they can come out. Tickets are available right now at Eventbrite.
Okay.
Yeah.
You guys got any last words?
Well, just make sure you continue to stay tuned and tune into, you know, our weekly panel so that you can be informed. And always speak up. We don't know what you're thinking if you don't have a voice.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.